What's up, guys? It's your girl BMF Goddess. I'm here today with the pleasure of interviewing the King of Chaos, pro wrestler Logan Black. Logan, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Goddess. I'm stoked to be here.
How are you? How you doing, man?
Yep. Another day, another dollar. You know how it is.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to start off by asking, how did COVID affect wrestling for you last year?
Last year I had a lot that I expected to happen, a lot going on. New states that I was debuting in, new promotions, a lot of really, really great stuff upcoming, and then literally within like a week, everything just got canceled, understandably. So the week before everything shut down, I was on the show, the Butch vs. Gore show in DC, which was, hell of a way to go out, but yeah, it was pretty legit, and man, it shut down a lot of what I had going on, a lot of really fun prospects, but it's better that everybody end up safe and that everybody comes back. As you see, wrestling at this point it's going crazy. It's going wild, going back to, I would say it's going well above what it used to be. People have been dying to go out and be social and have fun at wrestling shows, and attendance is proving to be attendance is certainly way up. And
everybody's back. It's so much different.
Back and full of energy.
Right.
Which I love to see.
So, let's start at the beginning.
Yep, let's do it.
Who were your early inspirations in wrestling, pro wrestling?
Oh man, as a kid, I doubt you're gonna get anybody on here that isn't gonna tell you Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, stuff like that. Every kid loves the superheroes, right? As I grew up, we got a little bit different. I think for me, one of the bigger changes in the mid-90s when he had Savio Vega debut. I say this on like every podcast that I'm on. It's like Savio Vega was the first time that I saw the Puerto Rican flag like on a wrestler. Now, granted, I didn't know about the rich history as an 8-9-year-old of wrestling in Puerto Rico. But boom, it's like, all right, here is this guy. He's wearing this flag that I'm familiar with. He looks like he could be at a cookout of my family. All right, this is my dude right here. And I became a huge Savio Vega fan as a kid. As things progressed, as I started, breaking into wrestling, I really started to develop like my love of guys like Stan Hansen and Terry Funk. Terry Funk is my all-time favorite wrestler at this point. Nobody even comes close. So things start to evolve, and I start to find your interests. And for me, it's always been the brawlers who go out there and take really stupid bumps, are reckless with their bodies.
All right, I respect that. That's definitely to relate. Do you remember the specific moment when you were like, that's what I want to do?
I don't think it was a specific, let's try that again. I don't think it was a specific moment. I think it was a moment, a number of moments. Growing up and just being a huge fan, you wrestle with your friends, your uncles and all that stuff. Everyone loves wrestling around you. It's inevitable that you're going to want to go one of two directions. You're either going to want to jump into the business, or you're going to want to be that weird guy who shows up at airports with the replica title. I don't have that in me to do that, so it was just like, all right, well, I'm going to hop into this. I was somewhat athletic, growing up, but I played in bands as I grew up, so entertainment was a big part of my life. So that was something that I definitely had to and wanted to get into, and it was literally, I've got journals from like 3rd grade and stuff where I was just like, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. So, weird stuff for 3rd grader to write about, but here we are all these years later, and I've, achieved that goal.
So how many years have you been pro wrestling now?
Is too many years a proper answer? Because that's actually what it is. No, I've been at this, I broke in So I'll say 15 years. However, a lot of those years were not me taking it seriously or not necessarily knowing how to take it seriously. The landscape of wrestling was very different when I broke in. I think honestly, like the landscape of wrestling changes at this point every like 3 to 5 years completely. Whereas like 3 years ago, WWE was on the verge of literally scooping up everybody on the indies with even the slightest bit of clout. And now they're kind of finding like, oh, we beefed up our roster too much, we can't do anything about it. So they're not like pulling everyone off the indies. And now you have all this talent going back into it, which is going to change things up completely. 15 years ago, it was very much, you're not going to get signed unless you're, over 6'2" and over 250 pounds. They want college athletes. They want tall, muscular, and that changed. Yeah, that was what it was. So being somebody who was nowhere near any of those things, it was more just like, all right, well, I just want to, enjoy myself, and I want to kind of work these indies that I'm going to all the time, and work these wrestlers that I'm enjoying. And in a lot of cases, I've been able to get in there and work some of the guys that I paid to see as a kid, which is kind of wild to me. But it was a very different culture at the time. So because of that, it was a lot harder to take this uber seriously if you weren't, really fitting the mold of what was going to make money in wrestling. Because not very many people were making money at that point.
I'm true. So. What if you came out? I mean, trying to think of the right way to present this.
Use whatever words you'd like, whatever comes from the heart. That works for me.
First of all, when you did come out, and if you could just state what you identify as your sexual preference.
So I came out earlier this year as pansexual. For those of you who don't know what that means, it means that I am attracted to people based in no way on any type of gender binary. I just like people for people. That's kind of how I go about things. And like I said, I came out earlier this year very publicly on Twitter under a thread of people where somebody flat out asked, who in wrestling is part of the LGBTQIA community? And for me, it was more of an inevitability because I think, those close to me already knew. I'd come out to my partner. I came out to, like, my closest wrestling friends. They all knew. So it was just like, all right. And I wasn't really shy about it when people would talk to me about those type of things. But like, oh, yeah, that's how it is. And it's just I wasn't, like, out and public about it. And I was like, yeah, no better time than the present. Might as well go through with it. I don't want to say, I am confrontational. But I don't want to say that I'm confrontational because I wasn't looking to do it to be confrontational, but I expected to get some level of backlash from people, and I didn't catch an ounce of it. It was nothing but support and love from everybody, both within my bubble and outside of my bubble, which was pretty incredible. The queer wrestling community takes care of its own. They really do. And yeah, that's pretty much was my coming out story. Was not anything wild or crazy. It was literally just like, here is my time to speak my piece, talk about, who I am. And, I've done other interviews. I've done interviews with, Out Sports where I've explained just, it was a different experience for me my whole life because everybody around me kind of saw me in like, what would be perceived as heteronormative relationships because, that's what I really put out there. But, it wasn't necessarily reflective of who I was as a person. Just a matter of kind of being honest with it. And it took me years to kind of be honest with myself. And, even to this day, even though I'm out and, I'm, it's like I said, in a very public way, I still kind of don't feel entitled or I certainly feel accepted, but I do not feel entitled to a lot of queer spaces, which is something that, a lot of my queer friends are just like, you're out of your mind about. And they're right, because it's literally just my own insecurity on the subject. But I think that it was important for me to step forward with that, and I think as somebody who preaches about the importance of representation and putting everything out there. Again, we circle back to Savio Vega, seeing that Puerto Rican flag was my representation, to see my culture represented in, the biggest wrestling promotion in the world. Being able to see someone who I guess doesn't fit the mold of a queer wrestler, which I certainly feel that I don't. It's never been something that I've led with in terms of character. But just seeing that, if there's one, I guess muscular, fat, tattooed, mohawked kid out there who's kind of trying to find himself, and I help him do that. I mean, that's it. We can't ask for anything better,
I think that your story is amazing, and the courage that you have, because these subjects you try to tread lightly because people are easily offended, and being that you're living your truth and you're not the least bit worried about it, I commend you for, and I respect that a lot.
I appreciate the kind words, and I really do. I think, as I said, for me, being a part of that Butch versus Gore show and seeing all the queer representation on there, and people who are just unabashedly living as themselves and putting it out there and being, the word's not confrontational, I'm not thinking of a better word for it, but just being very out and being like, here I am, this is who I am, and that's it. Right, and that entire space, just being all about that, it was just like, well, what am I doing with myself? Why am I putting any barriers on who I am? Let me just be honest. And that's really what it took.
What advice would you give somebody struggling in the same or similar position?
So I'll say this: when I did come out, a number of friends in wrestling who have since come out hit me up and were like, "Hey, that was dope. I don't know if I'm ready to do it, but it definitely, what you did definitely made it seem like it is going to be much easier than I thought it would be." And that to me is all it really takes. I think just putting it out there and being like, hey, we're not alone. There is not one specific way that this, group of people looks or acts or presents.
Or needs to be, right.
Right. You put that out there and people go, wait, so it doesn't have to be like this? And again, I'm still dealing with my own insecurities on what that representation means and what I am and all those kind of things, but if it's able to connect with somebody in that way, in order for them to then step forward and live, their own truth, that's all that I could really ask for. So, I mean, the advice that I would have to anybody who's thinking about coming out or is, still kind of living with their truth is the decision is only yours. It is always yours, and it is personal until you do not want it to be. So you can come out, you can not come out. It does not make you any more or less part of the community. You are loved, you are respected, and you are very valid.
I want to say amen to that. That's some real preaching. So tell me, what is your favorite, or what is the spark that you get about wrestling? And what is your style of wrestling? What would you say you're expert at?
I wouldn't say I'm an expert at anything. I think that I don't want to say I'm too humble, but I also would never say that I'm an expert at much of anything. I think we're all on a journey of learning. Once we're an expert on something and we've learned everything that we can, it's time to hang your boots up, in my opinion. Only my opinion. But I would say that my style and what gives me the jolt of the life, the buzz of all this. My style is a brawler. I love to fight. I love bringing, and I've said this before on other shows, I love bringing the feeling that I had as a kid going to punk and hardcore shows. I like bringing that to an audience where I'd go to these shows and there would be a bunch of dudes, you look at them, you're like, all right, I ain't fucking with those. Excuse my language, I'm sorry. You sure? All right. I ain't fucking with those guys. So you'd have those people, and then you'd have, bands that would eventually, they'd jump into the crowd. You'd have that one guy who's ready to fight with everybody. It was a dangerous and chaotic environment, and it's like, I want to bring that because there is nothing to me that I look back more fondly on in my past than just like that sense of fun. And I don't see a whole lot of people, in my opinion, kind of looking to bring that energy to wrestling shows. I was just saying this to a young wrestler who had hit me up today to ask me for advice. I was like, there's a reason I watch every single match before mine, or try to watch as much as I can, because I like to see what the crowd is responding to, and also I like to see if there's anybody doing, any of the stuff that I'm imagining that I'd like to do. Everybody wants to be Bryan Danielson. Everybody wants to be Jushin Liger. Everybody wants to be the best technical wrestler, the best, most cleanest wrestler. And you know what? All the power to him. I could not be more of a fan of like the old school British wrestling. I think Wheeler Yuta is a brilliant wrestler. I think Trish Adora is quite possibly the best technician in the world right now. However, everybody wants to be them. Nobody wants to be Onita. Oh, there's plenty of people who do, but I'm on a lot of cards I'm on. Nobody wants to be Onita. Nobody wants to be, Masato Tanaka. Nobody wants to be that guy who just goes out and fucks people up. Nobody wants to go out there and just, brawl and not worry about, 5-star matches and not worry about, how many different holds they can get in and out of. I just want to go out there and bring the fight into the crowd so that, an entire section is like, they fought right in front of me. I watched this dude throw his forearm into another dude's face. I heard the slap of it. I gotta come back for this. This is wild. I need to come back next time. That is what gives me the spark. That is my style, and that is what gives me the spark in wrestling, is my ability to bring that feeling of, oh man, this guitar player is going to fall right on top of me, and everyone's going to help him up and keep dancing. I want to bring that to wrestling crowds.
You hear this, guys? New age guys, please listen to what he's saying right here. Do your fucking homework. Everything he's saying is valid.
Well, at the same time,
that's something that I feel is definitely lacking in today's wrestling, even mainstream. So,
there's a lot of hardcore promotions and a lot of dudes who are doing, incredible jobs with deathmatch wrestling and all that stuff. But I think in terms of just like the wider variety of like spots that are not just deathmatch wrestling, or like are not just hardcore companies, everybody's going out there and trying to have like the best wrestling match. And by all means, like, young wrestlers, go out there, please have the best wrestling match you can. Know every in and out of a hold. Man, that is so cool. I love it. But also recognize that your goal is to stand out. And if everybody does 15 wrist lock reversals on a show, what are people going to retain? Are they going to retain that? Or are they going to retain the moment that the action was brought to them? Moments over moves, I always say. You can have the coolest moves in the world, but you create moments with them. Jeff Hardy, doing the Swanton. He's done the Swanton a billion times. When he did it off that gigantic ladder, made a difference. Mick Foley falling off the cage, dude, is a throw a move? Possibly, but that's a moment. Kane ripping off the door, busting through. These are moments. We remember moments over moves. I think we start to lose that. I actually had a conversation this weekend at a show with a couple of wrestlers. We were talking about that exact concept. Moments over moves. You could be the greatest in-ring technician in the world. You could know every which way and know every little intricacy and every little bit of minutia. But in all reality, there are wrestling fans in the bubble. This is, again, I'll just preface, this is only my opinion on this. My opinion, will not get you on the New York City subway or bus. My opinion is not worth even that much. But, take what you want from it. You could learn all those things, but at the end of the day, only a small grouping of wrestling fans really care about certain types of reversals. Only wrestlers really care about certain little things like that, What do fans care about? being entertained, going home happy, and remembering things from their experience. It's why they buy souvenirs, why they buy your t-shirts, to remember the fun they had, to be able to put that out there. Moments over moves. Just my take.
Right. What is something that you want to achieve?
Something I'd like to achieve. Any something. So, I'll say, I'll preface this with the fact that I run a wrestling school, the T2T Wrestling Academy, or Training Center, T2T Wrestling Center, in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, New York. And I think at this point, I mean, I'm too beat up, I'm too old. I never really had TV aspirations in my life. I just wanted to travel the world doing wrestling. That's really it. But my... What was that?
I respect that.
Yeah, it's just, my interest was always in other stuff. And again, is it stupid? Probably. I'd probably agree with you if you called me stupid. But is what it is. I'll say that what I want to achieve, one thing, is to be able to help change the culture of wrestling. I was actually, quick sidebar to hype. I have my own podcast, the Year One Wrestling Podcast. I interview some of my friends and some other wrestlers on their first year in wrestling. And I interviewed Kerry Awful, who runs Crooks Wrestling in Tennessee. This week.
I love that, by the way. That's awesome.
Yeah, so Kerry is one of the most brilliant human beings in and out of wrestling that I've ever met. And he made the point, and it is so pertinent, and I think that this is just like, it blew my mind, and I love when that happens. Kerry said to me, if we do right by this generation of wrestlers, they will, by the time that they are like at the right point, they will be the ones to push us out for being terrible and toxic, even if we have not brought that on them. They will change the culture to make it so much better that we become dinosaurs. That, to me, if I could have one dream, one aspiration, it would be that all of my students who put the time and the effort in find their ways to success and change wrestling for the better. Get creeps out, get pedophiles out, get, all these sex pests out, these abusive people, get all of that nonsense out, get rid of the bully culture, get rid of, all the nonsense that has plagued this business for so long and made us just like, looked at like we're, a circus act, which we certainly are a circus act, but, there are cool, circus acts are cool. We don't have to be looked at, like the freak show. We need to be looked at as the artists that we are, and the only way to do that is to shed all of the nonsense and garbage that we just tolerated for years because this was a boys club and a mafia that just protected its own. Fuck that. Stop protecting your own, get these stupid garbage people out, and let's create a place that is inclusive and positive and that grows outward. That is my aspiration, to build a place in T2T full of students that build outward and radiate that positive energy and love and inclusiveness outward.
That's absolutely phenomenal.
We're trying. We are certainly trying.
Tell us more about your school.
Sure. So yeah, T2T. The T2T Wrestling Center. We are in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, 65 Skoll Street. We opened a year ago in the midst of COVID, and at this point we're having to turn students away because there are so many. We had a rule where you couldn't join up unless it was the first of the month, simply because we would put that time into getting people from just right at the start and preparing them for later on instead of letting people get lost in the shuffle. I don't want anyone to get lost in the shuffle. I want to be able to put my time and attention to every last person in there and to, as long as they're putting the time in, bring out the potential that they have, bring out all of their potential, not leave anything on the gym floor. So it's myself, I'm one of the head trainers. Brother Greatness is one of the other ones who, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated talents in the Northeast. Absolutely. Brilliant dude. And MV Young, who is just killing it literally everywhere. So it's the three of us running it in this just weird, interesting culture of just love and everyone supporting each other. The amount of people that we've had come down who have done TV, who have worked all over the world. They come to our space to train, or get a day in and work out, or have come like over time, and they're just like, y'all got something really special over here. It's I don't know what's going on, but there's something special over here. Don't screw this up, everybody. So I think we've got a real special atmosphere. Everybody's supporting each other. Everybody's showing love for each other. We do not tolerate any nonsense or BS. It is, and it's a place again where people are learning. I like to call it wrestling safe space where you can dump others on their head.
Wow, the way that sounds, I can see maybe 10 years from now, a couple of years from now, your students are really going places. Let's go.
We've had one kid get a WWE tryout already, which that's his goal. So that was pretty amazing for him. Again, I ask these students what their goals are on day one, and we try and achieve those goals for him. This kid was super motivated. He literally just got back this week, because it was referee tryouts this week. He went down, impressed, did a great job, learned so much, came back with so much knowledge. Shout out to referee Nick Pierce.
All right. That must be a really, really rewarding feeling to be a teacher and watch them evolve.
And that's honestly, I think, my favorite thing is just seeing the growth of students and how they just continue to get better and get better and get better, and then finally they take this big step forward into doing something else, and it's like, man, all right, it's like a mother bird who they do everything. They feed the birds, they feed their babies, and then time for them to fly, and they fly away. And it's you got to be proud of them because you've prepared them for that moment.
Another tough part of being a teacher is when you have to tell someone that they're not so good at something. Have you ever had to deal with that type of situation where you just know that it's not there, or
So I like to put it out there. I don't like to lie to anybody, but also my students will every one of them will tell you, Logan's poker face doesn't exist. I can't. They know when I'm frustrated. They know when I'm upset. They know when I'm not ready to deal with something. So I don't hide my emotions very well. I think one of the important things, though, is that you don't have to crush somebody's dreams. Just because that's how you see it. Wrestling is hard. It is incredibly taxing on the body, and it requires a certain level of athleticism. But that doesn't mean that it is not for everybody. You know what I mean? There's a role for everybody in professional wrestling. So, even if you're just, damn, I'm not getting this. This footwork is too hard. Oh, these bumps are I'm an asthmatic. I can't bump like this too much. It's well, what other options are you if you want to dedicate your life to wrestling? There's a lot that goes into this. It is entertainment. I can speak of one of my close friends that I broke in with, and he's killing it as a producer with Ring of Honor, is Will Ferrara. So he wrestles, occasionally on the TV shows, but he also, most of his work is backstage. And I think he found his calling there because he is just such a sweet, wonderful human being, and everybody can go to him and work with him, and he is just so good at being able to make things work. I think, again, Cheeseburger's another one. As brilliant of a wrestler as he is, I think Cheeseburger is an unreal trainer. He is just the Rolodex. I call him the Rolodex of pro wrestling because the guy knows literally, he knows so many moves. He probably is ahead of the curve and knows moves that haven't been invented yet. And it's there. He's that brilliant. And I think his calling, is being able to set up the next generation of wrestlers. So, mind you, he still has plenty of years left in his career to be able to, keep going and make $1 billion doing this. But, you see what I mean is that, wrestling doesn't need to just be bump, bump, bump in the ring, I'm a tough person. No, there's just referees, there's announcers, there's, ring announcers, play-by-play, all all these things for anyone to do. So there's no real reason in my book to sit there and tell somebody you can't be a wrestler. It's different to be like, hey, why don't we accentuate your positives instead of accentuating your negatives?
Okay. That's good. I've had some people tell me they I've never gotten that answer. Let's put it that way. I respect that a lot.
I mean, again, wrestling is a very negative business. And we play a lot to, the culture that has existed for years of like, we have to keep these people out. We have to keep those people out. We need to do this. And what did that end up doing? It ended up being a business pretty much exclusively run by white men, white heterosexual men, who did nothing but elevate other white heterosexual men. So where are we at? Where are we at right now? We're like people of color and women and queer wrestlers are all just like killing it every which way because people were just like, nah, that stuff kind of sucks. Let's not go with that. Let's see what these people can do. Let's not treat our women wrestlers like men with tits, which is literally something that I heard a former WWE wrestler, trainer, literally say at a seminar. He said, women can't get over because they wrestle like men with tits. Women wrestle with their emotions, not their fists. And all of us went, okay. And now look what's going on. Women are out there. Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks had one of the best matches of WrestleMania, not wrestling with their emotions and pulling hair and scratching and doing all that fucking nonsense. You give them a venue to do their thing. You go. Give me a guy like Jake Atlas who is openly gay but is not playing off the gay fear nonsense that we literally was like the only gimmick that you could run with for decades in pro wrestling. All of these wrestlers of color who are embracing who they are and their culture and all those for the culture. What an incredible draw on that show, literally celebrating wrestlers of color. This again, 20, 30, 40 years ago was something where it's like, well, maybe, we're going to elevate these other people and we're going to make them come to us to get what is cool, because now we fucking decide what's cool.
That's right. That's right. So I'm going to ask you a question that I asked all the indie wrestlers that I interviewed. If you were to get the call from a mainstream company, who would you want it to be and why?
Let's see. So, my personal ethic, I run everything I do in life and in business by ethics. My own set of ethics. So there are certain people, certain promoters that I will not work for. Because WWE is the pinnacle of professional wrestling. We cannot deny that. They have made some of my close friends very rich people, very happy people. So I will not talk down to them. But my ethics would not allow me to work for a company like that. And I also they're not looking for me. I'm well aware of that. If I was to get a call from something like AEW, I think that's way more my speed. With a smaller schedule. I just had a kid recently, and my daughter is kind of my life. Thank you. She's kind of my life. So I don't know. It's hard enough for me to be away for full weekends, let alone be out of the house 300 days a year. So something with a lighter schedule, Impact or AEW or even Ring of Honor. But again, I also recognize that these companies are not necessarily looking for what I'm trying to put out there, unless I'm an attraction, here and there, because it's TV. I get it. It's a process. Yeah. I think what's going on. My influences were always Lucha Libre. It was always Japan. Was always things like that, and it wasn't necessarily American style TV. So that's how I look at it. It's weird. It might not be for everybody, but that's how I think I look at it.
Have you ever gotten to go to Japan?
No, that's still on my list of things to do. I did do a tour of England. Like I said, I love British wrestling. During the tour, I got to wrestle Johnny Kidd, who's a British wrestling legend. Literally the pictures just came up on my time hop the other day of me wrestling with Johnny. Again, stuff that I'll never, ever, ever forget. But, it being somebody who's done international work, I just want to keep doing stuff like that. I love doing that. I love absorbing other cultures, and I love traveling on other people's diet.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That is definitely the goal. I hope you make it there. I love Japan, the whole Japan wrestling scene. Yeah. For me, if I was ever to, because there was a time I entered. I started when I was 19, but I didn't continue. But that was definitely on my goal. Like, Japan is the most disciplined place where you can, learn the craft. In my eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is very much a place to learn, because you're immersed in a place with a different language, so you've got to kind of learn to communicate, and it is a very disciplined, very, very disciplined business over there. It is not, it's not a game.
Right. I love it.
Same.
So, aside from the other stuff, or an upcoming wrestler or someone whose goal is it to get in the business as a wrestler, what would your advice be for them?
My first bit of advice would be to subscribe to the Year One Wrestling Podcast, because that is literally a question that we ask every single week. So you're getting different responses every single week from different people who have spent years upon years in the business. When I have given my opinion on this, the best advice that I can give for anyone looking to hop into wrestling is whether or not you use wrestling as a career choice, or just a hobby that you do once a month, twice a month, every weekend a month. Regardless of how you treat that with yourself in your head, never treat it like a hobby. Never go out there and not take it seriously. Get gear, get yourself in shape, put the time in for training. Don't treat it just like, I collect comic books. I wouldn't, if I did the same thing, all right, I'll go pick up comics, once a month, and go sifting through this and put some time in. Okay, that's it. You can't do that. Don't treat wrestling like a hobby, even if it is one. That would be the best advice that I could give. Although I will refer to Bobby the Brain Heenan's advice when he was asked this question on a shoot interview, when they asked him, what would your advice be to anybody looking to get into the business of professional wrestling? He said, get a revolver, load it with bullets, and blow your brains out. Which is also, I think, pretty good advice for anybody looking up into wrestling. Saves you a whole lot of heartache and money.
Right. Have you ever suffered any crazy injuries?
I am at least 3 times concussed. So, wrestling has taken its toll on me. I've got scars all over my body. I'm missing a tooth in the back over here from a kick that was not called. I've broken my nose twice. Funny story about breaking my nose. I always like to tell this one. So, I was wrestling. It was Beyond Wrestling, and Drew Gulak. I've wrestled all over the place. It was Beyond, and Drew Gulak was running the show, and he goes, this is years ago, of course, but Drew goes, hey, the only rule is just don't bleed in the ring. Please, this is not our ring, do not bleed in the ring. Of course, who cares? And during the match, I turned into a leg lariat. I mean, it was a snug leg lariat, but it wasn't necessarily placed wrong. I turned into it wrong, and it broke my nose. So there I am, bleeding everywhere, and every bump that I take, I'm bumping and I'm wiping my blood off the mat as I get up, because I do not want to leave blood in the ring for Drew Gulak to kick the shit out of me. He was very chill about it, though. So, yes, that was a nose break.
It makes you, you gotta focus on your match, but you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm bleeding.
I was like, no, at that point, I was focusing just on making sure that ring was sparkling clean.
He was showing.
What other things? I mean, actually, the first night I was in England, I tore a tendon in my back, but that heals on its own. That was miserable at the time, but it's since healed. I have no cartilage left in my knees. So yeah, wrestling injuries aplenty. But, I'm still trucking along. And I think, again, one of the best advice that I got early on from wrestlers when they were like, you're really going to learn to work when you're hurt. That's when you really learn how to be a good worker. And they couldn't have been fucking more correct on that. Because I think that I've gotten better as I've learned to work around all my injuries. It has been very important for me.
Explain that.
So, let's see. You learn to focus on not putting the attention on, so like, let's say you've got a knee injury, and it's harder for you to run the ropes, right? You're going to have to learn how to put a match together for 10 minutes without really running the ropes too often. If your back is really, really hurt, like if I've got a Friday crazy match, Saturday crazy match, and then bang, Sunday I've got a match, and this person's ready to go in, and I'm like, man, if I take too many bumps, I'm not going to be able to drive home. Because, I can't crash and die. So you learn how to limit your bumps in that match. You learn how to move. Ric Flair, for example, I'll use that. Ric Flair broke his back in a plane crash in the early 70s. If you wonder why Ric Flair takes bumps the way he does, it's because he broke his back. Ric Flair learned to work smarter and became a better worker because of it. Worked around his injuries, because if he just went, oh, I'm not ever taking a back body drop, I'm not ever taking that big, toss off the top rope, I'm, not doing this or that, well,
yeah,
learn to work around it. And that, for me, where I'm at right now, like I'm learning, okay, I can still be athletic with this and still get up in the morning and not hate myself, but, maybe let's not drop me on my neck until the end of the match. Yeah, little things like that.
It's still risky though, right?
Everything is risky. Every step that I take, every bump, every little thing is risky. Again, I say this to a lot of young wrestlers too. Or, less young wrestlers, more I say it to fans on Twitter, because I am very, very aggressive with toxic wrestling fans on Twitter. I don't like it. I think that that's what holds a lot of wrestling back and a lot of other people from being interested in this awesome thing that we do, is just toxic wrestling fans who hate everything. I famously say, nobody hates wrestling like wrestling fans. So I say this often where...
That's so true.
It is true. Nobody hates wrestling like wrestling fans. We are unique in a business. Comic book fans are weird and crazy. They're not like wrestling fans. Star Wars fans might be the closest thing. But... So am I. And you know the fandom.
Yeah.
Not the exact way that they like it. They lose their minds and they get aggressive with people. I'm super aggressive with wrestling fans who are all like, oh, this move is dangerous. That move is dangerous. And I'm like, bruh, every time that I step in a ring, it is dangerous. I'm throwing myself onto, wooden boards with just a tiny bit of padding on it. Those ropes, if that rope snaps, I can get hurt. If, somebody didn't tighten the ropes the right way, who knows what could happen. I take one bump and my body shifts just a centimeter. That's it. I'm pissing in a bag the rest of my life. I'll never forget, as a kid, I was a huge ECW fan. Rob Van Dam broke his leg literally doing a baseball slide that he did night in, night out. He would say that. He goes, I did this move 1 million times. It was a freak accident. We very rarely get hurt on the crazy, stupid bumps we take. It is always the shit that we do all the time. Just, luck happens to run out. So, that to me is an important point to make, is that everything we do is dangerous. So stop complaining about it. Enjoy the show.
I've written statuses about the same thing.
I put them up all the time.
I love your perspective.
Now that you're following me on social media, you will see me complain about this all the time. Whenever it's like, wrestling fans, stop complaining, enjoy the show, get your popcorn and hot dog, and shut up.
Tell us where we can catch your podcast.
Literally anywhere that you can get a podcast. It is... if you search Year One Wrestling Podcast, you're going to get a lot of returns, because it is literally anywhere that podcasts are available. I busted my butt to be able to put it on literally every hosting service. I get it off of Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts has it, Pandora, Spotify, they've all got it. So you can check it out there, Year One Podcast. And then on social media, I post things from time to time, updates on guests, preview videos and stuff like that. And all the social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is Year One, like the number 1 pod.
How about your King of Chaos?
Sure. So all my other social media is simply at King of Chaos NYC, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I've also got merch set up both on Pro Wrestling Tees at prowrestlingtees.com/King of Chaos NYC, and then on my virtual merch table. It's all the stuff you could get at my normal merch table, and that would be at kingofchaosnyc.bigcartel.com.
Awesome. Logan, I want to thank you for being here today. Everything you said has been really enlightening, and a lot of people need to hear this stuff. And I love it. I have definitely a greater found respect for you than I previously had already.
I appreciate the kind words, and again, I'll just say, this is all my opinion. It will not get you on the MTA bus. It will not get you a banana at the grocery store. It is worth whatever you'd like for it to be worth. It could be worth nothing, it could be worth plenty. You take what you want. Thank you so much.
Alright, guys. Thanks for being here. This will be on YouTube on Monday.
Perfect.
You have a good night.
You as well.
May the force be with y'all.
Yeah, and you as well.